The last great philosophical luminary from ancient Greece that we want to consider from the ancient period is Aristotle. Aristotle was a pupil of Plato, and Plato did influence Aristotle's thought to a great degree. Moreover, they use a lot of the same strange technical terminology to express their own ideas. So it's sometimes easy when you're reading Aristotle, coming across a particular term that Plato used, to see more agreement than there actually exists between them. Because as a matter of fact, despite the influence of Plato, Aristotle developed his own profound differences, his own profound viewpoints that were apart from, that were distinct from the Platonic origins of his thought. So what I want to do now is I want to give a kind of overview of the basic differences between Aristotle's and Plato's metaphysics or overall worldview. And I want to begin with the nature of the forms. So remember, for Plato, the world is bifurcated into two distinct realms. You've got the physical realm, populated by concrete physical objects, and then you've got another sort of suprasensible realm, populated by the forms, which are these eternal entities, forms of justice, of beauty, whatever it is. And these are the objects of true knowledge. The physical things in the world will participate in these forms, right? So what a thing is depends upon the kind of form that inheres in it or in which it participates. But physical things are only shadows or inexact representations of the things in themselves. For Aristotle, all of that sounds a little bit too exotic. Remember, for Plato, he's got this whole theory of the immortality of the soul, of reincarnation, that comes in to explain how we can recognize something as being of a particular species, or recognize a particular society as being just, and so forth. Aristotle is much more the champion of common sense. You'd think of Aristotle, in our terms today, as being of a more scientific bent. He doesn't distrust his senses in the way that Plato does, and he resists the idea that reality is bifurcated or dual in the way that Plato had in mind. So here's what I mean by that. Aristotle also will speak of forms. Forms are important to his physics, to his biology, to his metaphysics. All of that is certainly true. But he doesn't think of them as independent spiritual entities that exist by themselves in a sort of separate realm. He thinks rather of them as being essences that run through the particulars in which they inhere. So, for example, suppose you're giving a kind of biological taxonomy, you're categorizing things. Well, we learn to do it in accordance with the categories of genus, of species, and then we identify particular members as being individual, distinct members of a particular species. So what is it about these individual members that makes them the same? For Aristotle, it's that they share the same form or essence. There is some one what-it-isness or essence that runs through them all and explains what their characteristic functions are and what their characteristic behavior is. Okay? So there's, again, a wide difference between Plato's use of the term form and of Aristotle's. This becomes important when we discuss the nature of human beings, right? Like any other entity, human beings possess a form or an essence. For Aristotle, human beings are rational animals. That's what it is essentially to be a human. But you're apt to think of the rational aspect of the human being as being something like a soul in the way that Plato uses the term soul. So remember, for Plato, when you think of the soul, you think of it as being something like the ghost in the machine of the body. So you think of your body as being a kind of ship, and the soul as being the pilot, or the individual thing inside that pulls the lever. And that's why when the body dies, the soul can go on existing. That's the wrong way to think about souls or forms, according to Aristotle, because souls and bodies are much more integrated with one another than they are in the Platonic scheme. So Aristotle thinks of things or entities as in fact being compounds or combinations of form and matter, soul and body, to the extent that they have souls. So for Plato, what is the soul? He's going to answer the question in a very different way than Aristotle. Aristotle would say that the soul is the form of the body. Forms, or souls, can't exist apart from material entities, and there can't be anything like matter that is uninformed, right, by any particular essence. All right. So because of this basic difference, you can see right away that if the soul is the form of the body, and forms can't exist apart from the matter in which they inhere, the matter that they inform, then you can't have life after death. So for Aristotle, you are a mortal being, you are a physical being. So what then is the point of his discussion of souls? Well, you got to think about souls somewhat differently. For Aristotle, souls are much more akin to principles or forces that, again, explain the characteristic activities or functions of things and which identify what sorts of things they are. So just think of the etymology here. You've got the Latin terms animus, anima, words that mean soul. And that leads then to our English word animate or animated and all of its cognates. So what does soul mean in this sense? Something that is ensouled is fundamentally distinct from something that lacks a soul because it's an animate thing or a living thing. So there are different kinds of souls depending upon what kind of living thing we've got in mind. Plants have souls, right? Vegetative entities have souls. They have nutrient or nutritive souls that account for their growth and their development. Animals also have these, but they have in addition locomotive souls, which explain how they're capable of self-motion in ways that plants are not. They also have sensitive or perceptual souls, which explain their ability to perceive and experience the world. Now, we finally ascend to the human being. Obviously, human beings grow, they develop, so they have this nutritive soul. We also sense, we're capable of sense motion, so we're animate in that sense as well. We've got this sensible soul. But in addition, and what sets us apart from all the other animate beings, is that we're possessed of a rational soul. We're possessed of the form or the substantial form of rationality. And that is what sets us apart as a species from all other animate things. That's going to become a very important point when we move to Aristotle's ethics, because as we'll see, in Aristotle's ethical theory, what's good for a thing depends on what kind of thing it is, and what kind of thing it is depends on what sort of soul or form uniquely marks it off from other things.